Kristian Day joining me in the studio this morning. Finally,
I'm sorry.
No, it's
I'm
okay.
so sorry.
That's quite all right. I understand. Well, part of it, and most people that do any traveling whatsoever, even if it's just driving across the state to see grandma, after that weekend, it's like, man, I need a couple of days to recover.
Right.
You do that. Now you kind of travel between the West Coast and here. And that would be recovery time needed enough. But you actually were in the middle of doing something else instead of just kind of hanging out in California and coming back. You've been on the road here for.
I have seen the world. I've seen the United States.
Seen the U.S. Yeah,
the United States.
The U.S. portion of the world, and a lot of it. I understand now. What? First of all, why were you touring? Why did you leave California and Iowa and tour to all these other states?
Why did I leave the motherland?
Yeah.
It was another show that I started. I was doing season 2. I was a producer on the show called Muchikalala Detectives Club, which actually has been rebranded as just the Detectives Club. But
okay, yeah.
If you Google it, you look up Muchikalala. But it was for this company out of Richland, Chicago, called Dreaming Tree Films, and they have a nonprofit arm called Fresh Films.
Oh, cool.
So we do this show for kids. It's a children's science show, and it's a legit show. It's a union show. We had Ted Kaczynski from Saturday Night Live was in season 1.
Oh, very cool.
But season 2, we took it on the road. Originally, it was all shot in Chicago. We took it on the road, and part of where the funding comes from, it's all underwritten by businesses and grants. Is it's a summer workshop for teens to learn filmmaking. So you have your core group, which is myself as a producer. We have a director, an assistant camera, and a director of photography.
So, okay, this is, the Des Moines Music Coalition. They do this music university about So this is kind of like a traveling film university.
Yeah, it's very similar.
It's
very similar.
And I was going to say, and Girls Rock Des Moines is another one that gets musicians involved into the kind of the behind the scenes. So you're just kind of taking this and taking it on the road for film.
It's very, very similar. There's an application process that goes out, and we get all these kids who apply to get in all these different markets, and then they come. We only take about 15 per market. And then there's also one of our 2 sponsors, Subway and Best Buy. They do a contest where if you're living in a city not near where we're shooting, they will travel you out to work with us. And we had a couple on the East Coast, both in D.C. and New York, that were able to come and work with us. It was really a great experience. And honestly, I was really scared that these kids would not know what they're doing. And I come from a world where you got to be on top of things. Go. And it was go, because we technically, when the main team showed up, we only shot 2 days in each location. But those kids were on it, and there were kids that were really passionate about it. And I've always been a kind of a little grumpy towards film school. I think that you need to be working on sets before you know what you want to do.
Right.
And these kids were it was amazing to watch them.
What's about the age group of the kids
that
apply and or are accepted?
12 to 18, where the hot spot's usually 15 to 17.
Right.
Depending how serious they are.
Well, I was going to say that's about the time where it's at least serious enough to think about pursuing it into college, or maybe skipping college and just pursuing that as the career.
Well, it's funny when you say that, because I told them, I said, now I'm in a position now where I hire crews. I said, you put 2 people right next to each other, one has a degree and who doesn't. I'm going to hire based on how many sets have you worked on,
Yeah.
And it's really that experience of being there and understanding ethics and workflow.
Right. And you can get some of that in college. I mean, with through the school productions, et cetera, and sometimes internships that they make you do as a student. Or whatever, just getting involved.
Yeah, I'm by no means am I bashing college to anyone who's listening. I'm not at all. But I believe that there is something said to be about going out and working in the field.
Best teacher's experience.
Exactly. And the kids were asking me, I was funny, each day I had a different shadow, someone who was with me while I was
I need one of those.
Yeah, well, it's fun because they were asking me, on the days I was really grumpy and just I was stressed out about stuff, and I would have this kid next to me asking me questions. And actually getting back to the bones of why I do what I do, because when I work on shows, I'll be honest, I question my career choices because it's so stressful, especially on this, because I was both the field producer and the production manager.
Trying to club.
Yeah. And there's some days I was having to AD as well. It just was like, what's happening?
Yeah, why did I ever
Why did I agree to this?
Yeah.
But you know what? It was good for me. It was good for them. And I at one point, my brain shifted. And I was like, I'm going to give these kids the best, experience possible.
Okay, that's where I was going to ask you. The next thing is, do you find that working around the kids, working with the kids, kind of reinvigorates your appreciation for what you're actually doing, or does it help you get back those kind of new eyes looking at what you're doing that you've been now doing for so long? Or
I think it's the new eyes. It's also, I think it comes from someone who hasn't been dragged through the dirt of production, for as long as I have, and had those grand achievements, and then also have those failures.
Right.
I think it's someone who is just excited about their potential career choices.
Right. Now I know that you had mentors and people guiding you along the line, but a lot of what you've done has kind of been on your own and experimentation and everything. Do you see an advantage of somebody like you? With these kids, telling them, maybe not necessarily sugarcoating it like some other people might as mentors. Do you treat them more honestly? I mean, than you think maybe you were treated as bringing them into the it's going to be fun. You're going to be doing all this traveling and everything. And I'm sure this is what you got told. And now that you're doing all this travel, it's like, man, you got to travel all the time, and you got to just be here, and you got to be awake all the time. So, how are you approaching it?
I was straightforward with them, and then even though after I think I broke their spirit a little bit, I brought them back in. I was like, look, at the same time, I got in this because I love what I do, and I love making TV, I love making films, and I wouldn't be doing this if I didn't. I mean, I'm a firm believer, and I eat my own words. If I don't want to do something, I'm not going to do it.
Right.
So I think at the end of the day, we stayed on task with them, and a lot of the kids appreciate everything we did. Especially, I'll say this, I want to give a big shout out to our DP, Rick Reinbold, who so many kids they were so lucky to have him as their instructor, because he's one of those guys that could be doing so many other things. I mean, his eye is perfect. And he comes from a classical photography background. Ooh. So his eyes were on it, and they're teaching those kids about lenses and depth of field and framing. That's a huge thing, and it takes a lot to learn that.
And it's probably, the same reason that like you said, you had to remind yourself that you do this because you love it. It's probably the same reason that he's doing that instead of, like you said, maybe something a little bit more prestigious or impressive to the outlying world, if he's got that kind of an eye and that kind of experience.
The other cool thing, and I'll say this from the beginning to the end, this was all very student based. I mean, Estlin was our director, and he kind of drove the ship, and along with our EP, who's his wife, Kelly Fagley. They even had teenage writers who are now all WGA eligible, or will be at the end, because there's already distribution set up with PBS. First season 1 aired in PBS in Chicago, and the idea of this was to roll it out into PBS National. Now we're going to all these different places that are marketable.
Right.
So the kids get a really true experience. The only reason I even signed on was I knew that this already has built-in distribution. It's just a different way of doing things, and but it was such a great experience working with the kids, and working with this team of people.
Right.
Again, and I explained to them, on a regular set, this is not how it would be, but we make it work. And the smaller the set, everyone's doing more than one job.
Yeah.
I worked on Intervention. There was only 4 of us. I worked on MTV's True Life. There's only 3 of us. Everyone takes on different roles.
Well, and correct me if I'm wrong, but this is kind of like if you can do something like that, then if you actually get into a quote-unquote real production where everybody's got their one certain job, if you're basically getting a trial by fire. If you're getting inducted into the business this way, where you have to do 2 to 3 jobs, you're getting the experience of 2 to 3 different positions. Plus, like you said, sometimes high stress, not a lot of time to deal with each thing, but taking care of it. And then it's like, well, once you've gotten done with that, if you look at it like, well, man, I got through that, I can get through anything.
Exactly.
It's one way to boost the fact that these guys have not only participated, they've actually excelled in doing that.
Well, and this program's technically been going on for 15 years. They started off just doing short films, and then they did a feature film that got sold to Cinedime called The Stream, which was a period piece. It took place in 1981, and it had to do with Star Wars. So they had to get licensing to use all the character names from Star Wars.
Whoa!
I mean, so
that was probably a real big undertaking.
Yeah, it was. They also did a second.
We all know about Lucasfilm licensing.
And
exactly. How hard it is to get around or past that.
Oh, I know. And then they did another movie called Traveling Without Moving. Now they have the show. So I mean, this isn't a new program, and so they have a system that works for them, and they've had people that have gone through the Fresh Films program that have gone on to work in the industry full time.
Right.
One of the writers from Supergirl started with Fresh Films.
Cool.
You know, a lot of people have gone through it, and it definitely gets your hands dirty and breaks you in. And I told all of them, it's like, it's not all about being the director. It's not about being the camera operator or the DP or the producer. There's so many departments that you can work in. And as you know, you used to work on shows in Hawaii.
Absolutely,
you know?
yeah.
So, I mean, there's a lot of options and a lot of career choices you can make with it.
I mean, I did everything from, you know, haul people around to sweep.
Yeah, exactly.
And I'll tell you what, they swept me. They paid me really well for sweeping. I did not mind sweeping at all. Let me ask you now, these kids, like, are they going to be able to take what they did? Will they be able to up for the next year, or is this a new group of kids every year?
They can, and actually a lot of times people who have been through the program before had the opportunity of becoming interns, which is a paid internship. It's sort of like our associate producers, where as I mentioned before, we're only in a location for 2 days, the main team.
Right.
So we'll go in 2 days, shoot, travel, and then go to the next location, shoot for 2 days, travel. They will get there 2 days before us, and they will actually train the kids basic things about how to use the sound equipment, how to use lights, how to use the camera. This is a C-stand. This is how you properly open up a C-stand, close a C-stand. Safety precautions, things like that. And they also let them make their own short films for those first 2 days. They let them sit there and brainstorm ideas, and they let them take all the gear out, and go shoot whatever they want. And that's a great experience too. And when I was, I did a lot of the hiring in the local markets. So I made sure to hire production assistants that I had worked with that knew a lot about all pieces of it. So like when we were in Atlanta, I hired a friend who I've worked with since 2008, Megan Fleming, great girl. When we were in Los Angeles, I hired Rain Lahill, who I've worked with on The Bachelor for 5 seasons. His dad's a director.
Right.
He's from the UK. He wants to be a stunt guy. And so he's worked on sets since he was 15.
Right.
And he can come in and show them different things and work with them. And I remember one day I was a day off, and I came down from my hotel room into the conference room when they were doing their training session just to see what was going on. And they had the Magliner cart open, and they had the tripod on a camera, and they were doing dolly moves
cool.
down the hallway.
Yeah.
Like, that's great. That's super cool. I'm glad that they're doing that. That's super important. They're learning all these new skills.
And are you going to be involved in this again? I mean, is
Maybe.
this something that you caught the bug from and went, oh, I can't live without this, or is this just something that you're trying to share?
Maybe this is actually this is normally the time I would start to get ready to go out to LA to work on Bachelor, and I actually said no, I'm not going to be back this season. So after 5 seasons, I'm taking a break.
Okay.
But possibly you never know in the production world where things are going to go.
Absolutely.
And I've worked on a lot of shows, especially this last year with caucuses and documentaries and all these things happening. We'll see. It just all depends. Around that time when I'm trying to book work up for that part of the year, maybe it would probably most likely yes. I mean, that's the summertime. The only show that I ever hear about during the summertime is usually Bachelor in Paradise. So, and I don't want to go to Mexico. So.
How many years has it been since you've actually gotten to this time in the year and not gone, okay, I've got something to do? I mean, this is the first in, like you said, about 5 years now.
Yeah, I mean every season. I mean, my birthday's coming up, and I've always spent my birthday in Los Angeles for like the last few years. And
I think you should spend it in Iowa this year.
I would love to spend it in Iowa. There's things happen. In fact, I'm actually working though. We're shooting if we want to move on to what's coming up.
Yeah, that's a good segue.
Yeah, I'm producing along with Sam Pace Twomey, who used to be the head of the 48-hour film project for Des Moines. We're producing a gay web series called Outed.
Wow.
Yeah, so we're making gay TV, which I've been wanting to do for a while.
All right.
I believe it's probably going to be the next big thing, and from a commercial level. So we're shooting this. Joseph Smith wrote a script that got a grant from the Iowa Arts Council. And,
cool.
That was where the funding started, and the idea is it has to be basically given away for free after we're done.
Right.
But can be underwritten and all that stuff. So we're going to be shooting it here. We're actually going to be shooting in my house for a good portion of it, which I learned on Saturday afternoon.
You didn't know
Yeah,
that
I did not know that.
Saturday.
I just all of a sudden Sam's like, "Oh yeah, so we wanted to kind of make that the home base, and yeah, can we also shoot in your kitchen and your bedroom? What do you think? Great." And I'm like, "What?" So
get off the plane, wake up, and hey, we've just chosen you for a location.
right, yeah, that's basically what it was. So I'm doing that, and then I want to make a quick mention that I have a photography show which I have not promoted. So this is probably the first time you're ever hearing me talk about it.
It's been a while since I've heard photography. Although the last time you were here, you took probably one of the best pictures ever taken of me. So thanks, by the way.
Oh,
Your photography show.
I have a photography show that's been open since August 1st at the Lift, and I haven't promoted it. I guess because it's weird. As I've gotten older, I'm not into too much promoting. I mean, just like little things like this with you, because I like things to happen organically. And but I am going to have a closing reception on September 1st at the Lift.
Okay.
But it's strange. I keep kicking myself like, why aren't you talking about it? Why aren't you pushing it? I'm like, well, you know what? I'm in a venue that is always going to have people in there walking around, and I just want them to see it. That's the whole point.
I get that, but I'm also going to tell you the same thing. I had a similar discussion with Matt Woods last time he was in here, and Matt has gotten a lot better on promoting himself. He's like you and me for that matter. I mean, you know, a lot of more people would know who the hell we were if we'd tell them.
Right.
If we don't tell them who we are. There's nobody standing beside us that's going to do it for us.
You're right. That you are
So,
right. And,
you know.
and you know, I used to be really good about them. Remember when I was that 26-year-old always sending out press releases and everything I was doing. You know, 3 a week.
There's a fine medium in there somewhere.
right. Now I'm like, no, never. I will not promote it.
Not sending anything out.
Well, you know, again, it's weird. You know, it's not. My career's at a point where I'm pretty stable with everything, and it's a little more relaxed. I remember being in my 20s and just that anxiety of what's happening, what's coming up.
You're aging so gracefully.
I am. I've gotten into a good place. No, but and it's great that I'm really excited that we're actually getting to do something in Iowa. I don't really get to do that too often.
Right.
It was great when I got to do it during the caucus season, with Triumph 2016 and. Those documentaries I did for Japan. I mean, it was great. I'm glad though that, you know, when Sam sent me a message like, "Hey, we're going to do this gay web series. Do you want to do this with me?" I was like, "Oh, I would love to do that. That's great." And I'm home. That's a huge green light for me.
And I don't have to go back to
I don't have to go back to that show. I don't have to go back to California. That's amazing.
It's nice to have a little bit of breathing room.
Yeah, it is. It is.
And that's why we're glad you're back. Breathe as much as you want while you're back here too.
I will. I've you know what? I tell you, every time I get off the plane after being gone for so long, I'm just like, oh my God, I'm in Iowa. Thank you. Thank you. You know.
Where should people check out the fresh films and things like that?
fresh-films.com.
Okay.
And they can, if I believe that if there's any young people or people who have young people in their lives that are listening, in the springtime is when they open up for applications to do the program. I highly recommend it. They just relocated from Chicago to the Augustana campus in the Quad Cities.
Oh, cool.
So they are halfway between here and Chicago.
I was going to say that makes it a little bit easier.
Makes
for
it a
folks
little
like,
bit easier. Yeah, that's where their headquarters are.
We should probably have you come back in the month preceding the ramp up for sign up and remind people about that.
I would love to.
If you're still around, if you're still breathing here in Iowa.
Yep.
Stop by the studios.
I will.
Kristian Day stopping by, just a drop by like you're always welcome to do here at KFMG. Well, Kristian was crossing all kinds of borders. We're doing border music at KFMG as well. Here's Al Stewart.